this opportunity to have this discussion with all of us. I recognize all the senior district leaders here. I know the district governor nominee was mentioned. I recognize you, sir. All the district leaders, club leaders, good evening. It's really a great honor for me to be with you, to share some tips and to have this discussion. I call it a discussion because, we'll all participate and then get the much we can out of it. I also hope to learn from you. There may be some things we're not doing in our district, and I'm sure in the course of this conversation, we will also, I will also learn something. So good evening, and thank you for having me. So first and foremost, can we see my screen? Can anyone confirm that?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, super. Okay, thank you. So we'll just start off so that we can maximize all the time. I was told to speak on financial operations. It's quite wide, and I was wondering how I was going to finish it in 25 minutes. So we'll try as much as possible to run through some areas that I feel that we all have that knowledge. So as a way of introduction, I've said what financial operations is, which is to oversee the budgeting, accounting, financial forecasting, and analysis of financial data. So that's with regards to an organization. So what is our organization? Our organization is Rotary International. Now, Rotary has its own governance documents, which you can mainly find in what we call Manual of Procedure, or MOP. And we're still using the 2022 version, and hopefully the Council of Legislation will soon meet and we'll have an updated version. So in the Manual of Procedure, you see the constitutional documents, and the only ones you won't see in the MOP is the Rotary Code of Policies and the Rotary Foundation Code of Policies, because these ones are updated regularly as they have meetings either at the board levels or at the Board of Trustees. Now, we all know our Rotary year runs from 1st July to 30th June. And so that is also what we call our financial year. And that is also when presidents, DGs, and all elected representatives in different Rotary clubs and different Rotary levels will also assume office. I've taken time to just talk about the president nominee because some of these things will flow as we converse. Now, of course, we know that every club has a structure, the president on top, but actually the body that is responsible for governing is what we know as the board of directors. And the president is just at the peak as the chairman of the board. Now, we know that board meetings must hold at least once a month. I've taken time to illustrate some of this because they will come up in issues regarding financial management and how we can look at our financial reports. Now, who is authorized to call a board meeting? Usually it will be the president. But where the president is not forthcoming, two directors are also have the authority to write and request that a board meeting should hold. Now, what we expect that board members should be, they should be people in good standing. And as we said, the board is the governing body of the club. So the board takes final action. However, there's a caveat subject to appeal to the club itself. Now, this is also very important. Written minutes of the board shall be available to all members within 30 days. I'm citing this because it may come up somewhere along as we do our financial ops. So clubs are expected to meet a minimum of twice a month, whatever type of club you are, whether you're an e-club, whether you're a passport club, you must meet minimum twice a month. Now, members are to pay annual dues. Now, the same board also has the right to terminate or have an appeal or mediate in terms of membership. Now, our code of policies, our governance documents will also give us the opportunity to have a bylaw that is suited to our own club. Now, this is important because now we're getting to the meat of financial operations. Now, every year, we're expected to have an annual meeting, what some people will call an AGM, an annual general meeting, as provided in our bylaws. And it's meant to be held before 31st December. Now, it's important that at that meeting, there is a mid-year report, and also the report of the immediate past year, if it had not been rendered, together with expenses. All right, so now how do we even begin the financial operations? Financial operations starts the moment the board prepares an annual budget. Now, this budget is meant to have been prepared, passed by the board, sent to the club, ratified before that year begins. So for the 2025-26 year, before any expense in any way can take place, there's supposed to be this. Okay, yeah, yes, we can. All right, thank you. I just wanted to see what the comments were. And so please, if there are comments, please do put them in the chat box. So it's important that this annual income annual estimates of income and expenditure is passed, because that's the beginning of everything we do. It helps us to understand what is happening in the club and how the club can move. Okay, so let's look at some of the things from our recommended bylaws, because we're a club of rules. So whatever we do is based on the fact that there are governance documents that we already have. The first thing is that the treasurer deposits all club funds into an account. Now, the standard is whatever you get must enter your account. You cannot spend from what you have collected. It must enter your bank account first before you can spend. Now, at the end of every financial year, it is recommended that there's an annual review of financial transactions, which will be by somebody who is qualified. If it's a club that has the cloud and the financial means, you can bring a registered auditor to do that. If not, somebody who is qualified in terms of or has some expertise in financial transactions can do that for you. Now, club members are expected to receive an annual statement and a mid-year statement at minimum. But preferably, we expect that every club should be able to give a position of its accounts or financial report at every business meeting held once in a month. So how do we ensure that we adhere to financial standards? The first thing is to make sure that a club has what we call a finance committee. Usually a finance committee will be headed by the treasurer or any other person as stated in your club bylaws. Now, their roles will be to prepare your financial year budget, to track incoming and outgoing funds, ensure that the budget is adhered to, and at any point where there's any need to deviate from the budget, we must go back and seek approval. So what do I mean by that? If there's an expense head, let's say, for instance, by the time you prepared your budget, you didn't know that the RI president was going to come. Now, the RI president is going to visit, and the district has asked clubs to raise funds. You didn't put it in your initial budget, but you can't just take money out of your club and send to the district. So you must go back to your board, amend your budget, or have a environment or supplementary budget, whatever you call it, get it passed, and then before you can spend money. So you cannot spend what has not been provided for in the budget. And that is how we can determine at the end of the year if we followed our financial rules or not. Now, we must have continuity. So we encourage that in financial committees, everybody must not just move out at the same time. So if you have a finance committee of 5 to 7 members, we expect that you will do it in such a way that at every year, some people will leave and some people will come in. That way you provide continuity and people will know what has been happening in the financial committee. Now, one of the things Rotary is also advocating now is that we establish what we call a reserve fund. What is a reserve fund? In case of emergencies, you have something to fall back on. The standard so far is that most years, outgoing presidents don't leave anything to incoming presidents or incoming boards, and there's always an issue about the accounts. So let's quickly move. So how do clubs get their income? We know from your dues, installation, events, foundations, whatever. The rule is that anything that passes through your club must be documented, as long as it's going through your club, whether it is to pay for contributions to the foundation. But as long as it passes through your account, whether it's in and out, it must be stated and it must be recognized. Whether it's global grant funds. So all those expense heads, you may have different accounts for them, but at the end of the year, it's expected that reports will be given for all of that. Now, who is very key in the financial operations of the club? First and foremost is the club president, who is the CEO and reports to the board. But there's somebody whose job it is to do the day-to-day running and make sure everything works out fine, which is the club treasurer, or whatever name you have, depending on your bylaws. Maybe in some clubs, they may have finance directors or financial secretary, whatever your bylaw says, but that person has that responsibility. And then part of the things you try to do is to make sure you meet before you take your, that's before your year begins, you have a discussion with the outgoing club treasurer or whatever name he or she has to understand the way the club works so that you can follow through. And then when the fiscal year comes, now you need to maintain those records the way we want it. So which we include to collect the dues, to manage payments, make sure funds go to the right places, and make sure you do not pay out cash. So I've listed some of these things. I will leave them because of time. When I send the slides, you can look at them. But this is something that's important, and I think I should just pause here. Now, as a treasurer, you're expected to make sure you update the board every month with the club's finances. This is very important. And that's why I went back to the fact that boards must meet at least once in a month. And at every time the board meets, one of the things it must discuss is the state of finances. And that is why I've also said somewhere that even if the president is not around, 2 directors can call for that meeting. Ordinarily, if the president will not be around, the vice should take over. But we have seen cases where presidents will travel, there will be no board meeting because people feel that it is only when the president is around that meetings can hold. That is not true. And that's why I referred to some of those things. So let's move on. Now, who has the overall responsibility for making sure that financial operations are adhered to? Is what we call the board of directors. Now, let's look at some specific roles they have been given, which is to make sure that there are changes to club bylaws, including annual dues paid by clubs. Now, I'm saying this because in some clubs, they have entrenched the amount they pay in their bylaws. And now you know that with what is happening in the financial circles, what we pay every year keeps changing. In fact, it keeps changing monthly because it depends on the exchange rates. So that's why I brought that out. That is the club, the board of directors, it's their responsibility to make sure it's updated and put in such a way that fluctuations in exchange rates is not going to hamper what you collect. Then you follow the reporting format for your district and Rotary International. Every district has its own reporting format for its finances. So we must make sure we adhere to that. Then ensure that club invoices are paid on time. And then keep membership with RI current. Now, I'm stressing these things because we have seen sometimes in clubs where they report something different to Rotary International and report something different to the district because they believe the district doesn't have access. But that's not true. The district has access to your club membership. And if you don't report the correct thing, the district governor has the right to recommend for termination or suspension of a club that doesn't pay district dues. So conduct financial operations in a manner consistent with Rotary governance documents. So we'll keep moving. Now, you know the reporting requirements. It's very important that we know the reporting requirement because part of the challenges we have with our dues and financial operations is we don't know when to report members and then when to take them out. And you can see that if you don't amend your membership status before 1st January and 1st July, RI will bill you on what you have. So it's important you make all those changes as soon as possible. Now, another thing that causes a lot of issues in clubs is that we're not able to report club members, club officers, or remove those who are no longer our club members. So sometimes you have a club that says, oh, we're just 30, but on the RI portal, you're reading 45, and Rotary International will bill you for that. So let's look at some issues with dues and invoices. Now, the key thing to understand is that there are different dues that a Rotary club is meant to either collect or to pay. You have your club dues, which is what you determine on your own as a club. Now you have your district dues. Your district dues, of course, you go to your either your district training assembly or the president-elect's training seminar and pass the budget for the year. I understand in your district is 10,000 per capita per year. Then we also have what you also call the RI dues, which sometimes we used to cover all the dues we pay in a club. So for next Rotary year, which is what we should be talking about, is $41. Now, it's important that we know this because if we don't calculate the right amount that our members will pay, we begin to have issues as we go down. We also have some other Rotary fees that we pay, for instance, Council of Legislation or for the magazines that we have. Now, let's go to club termination. What leads to club termination? The easiest way to have a club terminated is by not paying your dues. Now, what dues is it? Is it RI or district? What the truth is the two. If you pay your RI dues, you don't pay your district dues, the district governor has the right to write to RI and say, suspend or terminate membership. Now, it's important that our dues are paid within 4 months for RI, because if they are not, our club faces termination. Now, you know the problem that goes with reinstatement, how we need to pay a reinstatement fee of $30 per members and all whatnot. So it is something we don't want to happen. Now, what can lead to a member's termination? The easiest way is not to pay your dues. And so sometimes when we keep dragging and then 6 months, 1 year, but what the rule says is that by 30 days, if you have not paid your dues, you should be terminated. It's as simple as that, so that the club can move forward. Now, what else can we do in financial operations that we don't do regularly? Is managing of risk. Most times we don't manage risk. So what are the risks that can crystallize for a club? For instance, you're having an event. Supposing, God forbid, something happens at that place, what will you do? Supposing, God forbid, Rotarians are traveling, there's an accident, there's injury, or there's even loss. How well are we prepared for that? So it's a risk that could crystallize, and it should be part of our financial operation. So what's the best way? We review our activities, modify them, then use contracts. Very important. A lot of times we have events, we just say, oh, this person is a caterer, just give the person, and then the person produces nonsense, and you can't collect your money. So it's good to draw up contracts and to make sure everything is professional. Now, let's look at accountability and stewardship, because in financial operations, you must have accountability, you must have stewardship. And who has that accountability and stewardship? Is the board of directors. Of course, the individuals like the president, the treasurer, and so on, but collectively is the board of directors. And we must make sure that we have accountability and stewardship as our watchword. So, sorry, let me just go up a little bit. Now, I just want to run a little bit faster. Okay, so let's look at some issues that can crystallize from the RI when we don't do the key things about accountability and stewardship. Now, the RI board will terminate a club that fails to pay its dues or other financial obligations to RI, or the required levy to the district fund. We talked about that. Now, second one is important. Suspend or terminate a club who retains a member who misuses the Rotary Foundation funds or who otherwise breaches Rotary Foundation stewardship policies. Third one, suspend or terminate a club that retains a member who is found to have engaged in sexual abuse, sexual harassment, or severe or pervasive harassment. I've brought this one in because there was a recent case that happened in Nigeria. A club was threatened with termination when they refused to terminate the membership of a key member of that club who was adjudged to have been involved in sexual abuse and harassment. Okay. Now, the board will also terminate a club that fails to protect young persons. So the Rotaractors, interactors in our care, we must make sure we protect them. This one is also important. Suspend or terminate a club that initiates or maintains litigation against Rotary International, the Rotary Foundation, and all whatnot. Now, why I put that here too is because some of these things could have come from either the misuse of me or the use or misuse of our financial operations. So sometimes you have clubs that are quarreling and one person decides to go to court. It's not allowed. Now, some ethical, moral dilemma as we work in the financial space. One is conflict of interest. So the general rule is that you cannot preside over your own case. What do I mean? You cannot be the president and you're the contractor in your club. You're the one supplying food. You're the caterer. You're the one doing this and that, or the secretary or the treasurer. These are all called conflict of interest. And so where there's a conflict of interest, it's expected that you must declare it. So we want to have our installation. We're looking for caterers. You are a caterer, that's okay. But you must declare first that you are a caterer and say this is a likely conflict. And then let the board look at it and say, yes, it's a conflict we can waive, or no, it's a conflict that we cannot waive. And I tell you that there are some RI presidents that have been sanctioned over conflict of interest, and then 2 or 3 years ago, the chair of the Rotary Foundation Board of Trustees was also removed for conflict of interest. So what are the other issues? Relationship liaisons with club members. I've had cases where the president and the treasurer have an unholy liaison so that, they can also do some shady deals. So these are things we should note. So what are some of the best practices? Share your approved budget with club members. It is not for the board alone. In fact, in some clubs, they will insist that it is passed at the club meeting. So it depends on what your bylaw says. Now, encourage your members to pay your dues and other payments into designated club accounts. It's very important. So when you pay your dues in your club account, you have the tellers and evidence. If there are issues that have come up, you can easily reconcile that. The same thing with the payments for Rotary Foundation. So instead of paying through club and then remitting to the Rotary Foundation, why not pay straight to the Rotary Foundation account? There's an account in Nigeria, or you can just simply go and pay online. Let's embrace technology, right? These days, people are using technology, use of apps. You can structure it for clubs so that you have 2 or 3 signatories and, they can approve. Now, all club bills shall be by checks or transfer. There should be no cash payment. So sometimes you see in a club meeting, the charity, as it is being collected, is being used to settle bills for drinks. In any case, that's illegal. You shouldn't use charity collection for entertainment. And then club presidents, please and please and please do not touch cash. I don't, I find it sometimes disconcerting that we still hear that, after fellowship, a club president collects cash. It shouldn't be the norm in this age and time. So how does poor financial operations and stewardship affect membership? Apathy to club activities. And most of the conflicts we have in our clubs today are still related to financial operations, conflict and toxic environment, poor public image, people dragging Rotary in the public. We're talking about people, embezzling funds and so on and so forth. Possible sanctions by employers. In our district, we had to threaten somebody that we are going to report him to his employers and professional body before he brought out the money he had taken. So those are the things we are talking about. Sanctions by Rotary Foundation, of termination of club by RI. Of course, we know that if you misuse the Rotary Foundation, is termination. Rotary doesn't waste on that time. Now, when we have sound financial operations, what do we get? We get great club experience, word of mouth testimonial, good community, public image, enhanced membership participation, loosening of members' purse strings. And this is important. The times we are now are so hard. So if I'm going to put my money anywhere, I need to be sure it will be used wisely. Great membership lists, referrals, because people hear positive things about Rotary. Then we have more members joining. Learning and self-growth, just like what we're doing today. And business networking opportunities. Am I likely to do business with somebody who is shady in Rotary? No, because I'll feel, how else can I do business with this person outside Rotary? So what is our vision? We said to create, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. Now, we will only be able to do this when we have clubs that are stable, when we have clubs that maintain financial standards, and when we have clubs that understand what financial operations is all about. Thank you so much for inviting me to your district. I'm very honored and grateful for this opportunity to have this conversation with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, past district governor Ndukwe Chukwu. That was a masterful presentation, a real shedding of light on financial operations in the club. It is amazing how you were able to, cover a topic that is so wide in such a brief presentation and touching on all the essential points. I really must appreciate and thank you so very much for this lecture. I am very sure that our members that are on this call, our leaders on this call, have taken a whole lot away and would be able to cascade that down to our various clubs so that we can have, a better club experience. I like the fact that you were able to let us know the advantages that we stand to gain and the disadvantages if we also do not practice good financial operations. And I'm sure that this is going to be a point that we will all take very much to heart and ensure that we practice adequate and proper financial activities in our clubs. I thank you so very much, my PDG. Thank you so much. We would have a questions, answers. I'm sure there are going to be several. On your chat box, dear participants, if you would like to ask a question from our guest speaker, please just kindly raise your hand. I would look through to identify those that have signified, and then we'll take, let's see if we can take 4 questions. Let's see if we can take 4 questions, and then we'll see how that goes. So please signify by a raise of hand so that I can recognize you. I'm going through the chat box to see those that may have raised hands. Yes, thank you. Just like we did last month, the slides and the audio recording would be circulated at the end of this session. I want to recognize and welcome past District Governor Obafunsho Ogunke. He has an uncanny knack of coming in virtually unnoticed, but you have been spotted, and I welcome you. I recognize you, sir. PDG Ogunke, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dolu.
Thank you, sir. All right, Simon Awotoye, I can see you. I want to identify all those that are going to ask questions so that we'll just take it all at a go. If there's any other person that would like to ask a question, please raise your hand virtually so that I can recognize you. All right. Thank you. That's another hand up from a Sonwo. So, yes, thank you. All right. Okay, so that we don't waste time, let's take those two questions. Simon Awotoye, you have the floor. Please skip protocol, just identify yourself, your name, your club, and go directly to the question so that we don't waste too much time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the job well for what he has presented. My name is Primary Club of Yadon Ibadan. I'm the director in the club, past treasurer and past president of the club. Now, I discovered that the presenter emphasized on cash holding, that the president should not hold cash and there shouldn't be any cash transaction during the club process of financial program or financial transaction in the club. But now our SAA has been most of the SAA these days, although some people do transfer, but we still collect cash. But with the situation of the current things in the banking sector, most people don't even like to go to bank to go and bank whatever cash they have collected. So in this, you find people, okay, they can collect that cash from you, they will do transfer, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we pay out cash return. So in that case, what our presenter, the PDG advised in this case, to ensure all what we have certified are maintained and followed during the club, in the process of club financial transaction. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Vice President Awotoye. So you want to know what the proper thing to do is when cash is collected during club meetings. Since the guest speaker said president should not handle cash. All right, thank you. Let's take all the questions and then allow the answer to come in at once. So, Sonwo, please, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening, sir. Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Dodo, and thank you very much, our honorable speaker. My question is, you said when is the best time for the next year budget to be prepared, and is it the president-elect that will prepare the budget, and with who? No, most cases we only have the president-elect. We don't have the FinSec, the other ESCOs. We don't have them already on ground. So who is to prepare the budget, sir? Thank you very much, sir. That's my question, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. You were audible enough, so I don't see the reason to repeat what you said. So we'll take the last question from Rotary Adeyemi Oluwaseyi. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. Please go ahead, you have the floor. Rotary Adeyemi. Okay. It appears the Rotarian is having a few issues communicating with us. So since we don't want to waste too much time, the two questions that have been asked regards to handling cash and the club budgets. I will now yield the floor to our guest speaker, PDG Ndukwe. Please, you have the floor now, sir.
Thank you, dear Dolu. And before I continue, let me greet my special boss, PDG of Bafunsho, sir. It's good to see you on this call. So for the first question by past President Simon, yes, I do understand that people don't like to go to bank, but we're talking about best financial practices. What are the best practices? And yes, the SAA collections would be by cash. Expect that once it is collected, it is deposited into the bank accounts. Personally, I don't subscribe to holding cash. Like I said, it's easier to maintain a trail when everything goes into the bank's accounts where you statements. You will see, for instance, SAA collection, maybe it was on Tuesday, 35,000. By Wednesday, Thursday, it is deposited into the account. When you print your statement, it's in black and white. It helps you with reconciliation. When one person holds this, stories will come in. Okay, okay, that 35,000 you're holding, please use it and settle this one. Was it settled? What happened in the process? So we're talking about best practices. So in as much as, yes, I know there are issues with going to financial institutions, but it's still advocated, it's the best, and it helps you in having a good financial system. Now, Rotary and someone said, when is the budget done? Yes, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. So, like, if you noted, there were things like I kept saying, please note, I told you that the president nominee is always elected minimum of 18 months to when her tenure begins. So, for instance, right now, the president-elect, some clubs will still prefer to call them president's nominee till they have the nominee in December. But whatever the case, whether it's elect or nominee, but the issue is that by December last year, latest, some people were elected and they're already there. Now, you already have those who have been elected much more that are already waiting to take over. Now, in December, remember we talked about annual meetings. We said before December, there will always be an annual meeting where elections will hold. Now, at that annual meeting, the officers that will serve with the 2025-26 presidents would be elected. So again, that's why I brought in all those provisions, because sometimes our clubs do not follow it. So you have a president-elect who is just there till the last month, and then elections are being held. No. So elections should be held by latest by December this year. All the officers that will serve with the 2025-26 presidents are elected. And once you're elected, you start meeting, So sometimes we have a board not meeting, waiting till June before they will meet. No, because it defeats the essence of having those elections on time. So by December, once your board is elected, and if you're a president-elect here, once your board is elected, nothing stops you from starting to have your meetings. So what will happen? You begin to talk about your plans, you make them smart, measurable, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, target. So you begin to say, this is how much we think we need to realize within the year. This is what we should do. And so the treasurer or director of finance or financial secretary, depending on what your bylaw allows, is already taking notes. And then you also have the benefit of having a finance committee. That's why I said finance committees should be such that there's some form of continuity. Some people will leave, some people will come in. So you now all sit and prepare that budget. Now, that budget is meant to be passed before 1st July 2025. So, depending on what your club rules or law says, in some clubs, they will say you will have a joint board meeting starting from the last 3 months. And then, of course, you can present your budget to that board and it is passed. And then you begin to prepare for it. So, don't worry about it. You don't have a board right now, but I can assure you by December, you will definitely have a board. So if your club has not been doing the right thing, make sure that by